Welcome to Your Family's Health. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the Department of Nursing here at Nassau Community College. Your Family's Health is a program that focuses on healthcare issues and resources available here in Nassau County. On the show, we will be speaking to experts from around the country to keep you up to date on current healthcare issues and trends. Today, we'll be speaking to Mr. Howard Feivelson and his wife, Ava Feivelson. And this is going to be about kidney transplant and donation. I'm also here with a master's prepared nursing student, Djovannie Petitfrere. She's completing her master's and she has some expertise in the field of nephrology. So if you want to know more about how to stay healthy in Nassau County, stay tuned for the next half hour to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome to the show, Howard and Aviva.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Such a wonderful story as I was reading your bio. Tell us a little bit about your story, about how you are able to share with the listening audience about kidney donation and transplant. Tell me what happened.
Well, unfortunately, I went through the most usual reasons why people have kidney issues. There are many reasons why people could have kidney issues, chronic kidney disease, failure, etc. But the most common reason are the diseases known as diabetes and high blood pressure, which I did suffer from both of them. And it's a slow process, and over the years, they call diabetes the silent killer, which means you don't really feel anything. Like if you get a broken arm, you're in pain. And many illnesses, people have pain that could alert them to issues coming up. And diabetes is an issue that unfortunately affects all your organs, and kidneys especially, and it's a slow process. And the only way to really tell is by seeing a doctor consistently and taking blood tests.
Were you also hypertensive?
Yes.
So you had hypertension and diabetes.
Correct.
And how long had you had hypertension and diabetes?
I would say around 20 years.
About 20 years. And so this had a negative effect on your kidney functioning.
Yes. I mean, slowly. It's a slow process.
Slow process.
And then once it hits, it towards the end, it goes quickly. And once you hit what's called stage 4 of chronic kidney disease, then they start discussing with you the possible treatments, which can eventually be either dialysis or kidney transplant.
So having chronic kidney disease, did you start dialysis?
Yes. What happened was I didn't realize, again, how to the extent it was that, because I was watching it and trying to keep the kidney working as much as possible. But there was a situation over a couple of weeks where I started throwing up, started vomiting quite often, which is very unusual for me. And it was one Saturday night where I ate something, and about 2-3 in the morning, I vomited, and my wife said, "This is ridiculous. We're calling, we're going to send you into the hospital." And we called the emergency ambulance, and they took me into South Nassau Community Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. And they saw there that my potassium level was very high. And my nephrologist was called, and he said I had to go on emergency dialysis. And then from there, I went on to dialysis for almost 18 months until the actual transplant took place.
Were there any? Oh, hi. This is Djovannie. Were there any other treatments that you tried prior to dialysis to slow the progression?
Basically, taking medications and exercise and trying to watch your diet to keep the sugar levels down and to keep the blood pressure down. And I was successful for periods of time, but unfortunately, I just couldn't keep it up long enough, till it had, a very negative effect.
So, as you were on kidney dialysis, did it ever come a time in your life where you felt that some sense of loss or some sense of grieving because of the change in your life and the way your life was changing because of your health status?
Well, it was definitely very difficult. I mean, I would go to dialysis 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 o'clock in the morning, and have a 3.5 to 4 hour dialysis session. And then I would come home, grab a quick breakfast, then go to work full day, and come home at 8 o'clock at night. And it was obviously very tiring. I mean, my wife could attest to, basically, when I got home from work, I was just ready to just go to sleep, because that's basically all I was doing on those days, going to dialysis and going to work. And even on the days that I wasn't in dialysis, you had to be careful, dietary reasons why to stay off certain foods, because even on dialysis, if your potassium level and phosphorus level could raise very easily depending on the foods you eat, and that the potassium level especially, if that raises too high, I know the nurses always told me, that could just stop your heart, and you could just have an emergency right there. That could be very, very dangerous.
So this question is for Aviva. Thank you, Howard. For Aviva. Aviva, how did this, your husband having chronic kidney disease, affect your day-to-day lifestyle? I know, how many children you have?
We have 9 kids.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was complicated enough, but the kidney disease added to it. As long as he was able to eat properly and stick with a diet, which is very complicated because at the end, with the last stages of chronic kidney disease, the person can't eat sugar. In my husband's case, he couldn't eat salt, but then he also could not eat a lot of protein. And if he was able to stick to that diet, which we were pretty successful in the beginning, then you can really keep the creatinine level stable, no matter how bad it is. But otherwise, which wasn't his case, there are so many different types of things that it affects the heart and blood sugar. There are so many different episodes, and I just know that during the day it was fine, but very often at night when I went to bed, please God, keep my husband alive another day. So it was very tense.
When did you reach the decision, and what was the discussion that turned to kidney donation? How did that work? And what was the situation that occurred that you had to face the decision of saying, I'm going to have the donation, or I need a kidney donation because of the situation of my husband? And Howard can answer this as well. So we'll go ahead, Aviva.
So I don't know exactly what clicked in my brain and exactly what time when it was. But I was like, forever, I always just thought in my head we're the same blood type. And I did before try to donate blood. So it wasn't, I was a little familiar with that. But I think I just always felt that I'm just going to save my kidney for him. And hopefully, he won't need it. But if he does, he'll have mine.
They call that a gift of love, and I think that is a true gift of love. So was this a discussion that happened between your husband and yourself, and how did you make the decision, or did you always have this in your mind, I'm going to do this? Tell me what brought you to make that ultimate decision, Aviva.
It wasn't a very deep thought out thing. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a conflict.
Okay.
It was just, I'm donating the kidney, and that's how it's going to be. After we had gone through a lot of the process, two of my kids at least stepped up and said, because we're all the same blood type, stepped up and said, take my kidney, I'm younger. And I was adamant, no, it'll be mine now, and hopefully, we'll deal with you later. But it was never, I never had to think about it. There was never a conflict.
Tell me, Howard, what were the qualifications for preparing for kidney donation?
Well, the first thing that they say right away, because when you're on dialysis, you could live on dialysis for many years, even though how do you say it,
complications?
No, complications. The rule, I don't know, whatever. That's the wrong word. What's the word? No, that a person lives a certain amount of dialysis.
Life expectancy.
Right, the life expectancy of dialysis is only 5 to 10 years.
Right.
But that includes also, very old people. But if a person is a little, fairly a little younger, they could live quite a long life on dialysis. But it's very difficult. Like I said, those 3 days a week, even if you're on home dialysis, you have to learn the whole thing, and it could be very complicated. So when it came time to discuss the actual surgery, the first thing that I was told is you have to make sure that you're in as good a physical shape as possible.
Okay.
That means if you have to lose some weight, lose some weight. If you have to make sure to keep your numbers as low as possible, with the dialysis and diet together. And they did many tests, both in Cornell and with my regular doctor to make sure that everything was, in the proper position that it should be in order to go through the surgery.
So they looked at your weight, they looked at your blood levels, they looked at your age,
everything.
So there was a certain criteria and qualification,
even psychologically. In the hospital, the pre-transplant testing includes seeing a social worker and a psychologist in the hospital to see if psychologically you could go through that, because it's a very big life changer. It's also here I'm taking for my wife, which is even more. Many donors don't even know each other. No donors and recipients don't even know each other. Here, I'm married to this lady, and she's giving me her kidneys. So it could be a very traumatic situation, even though it's a life-giving situation. It's a wonderful situation, but it could be very traumatic too. I'm taking something away from her that's part of her. So you have to be both physically and mentally prepared, and you have to be tested, and they have to be 100% confident, the medical staff, that you're ready for it.
So you have to reach the qualifications, and as well as the person being the organ recipient, and also the organ donor has to go through certain qualification checks or pre-surgical checklists. So Aviva, you can tell me a little bit about what your experience is as being the one who was the donor, giving donation to your husband. What did you have to qualify?
So when you first walk in and you tell you tell them in the hospital that you're willing to be a donor, everybody flaunts over you, and everybody is so happy. But they hand you a sheet of paper, and you have to see with a list of people that you have to see, and you have to go through it's a whole day, and they ask you to see a nephrologist, the surgeon, a financial advisor, a psychologist or social worker. They take your blood. They do a scan, a pelvic scan, which sometimes these tests are not enough, so they have to call you back. A urinalysis. There are a couple more things I forgot. There are a couple more things, but it takes a whole day to do that. And in our case, we did it twice, because in between the first time that we were going to go ahead with the kidney donation, my husband had to have a stent, and they won't do it for a whole year after a heart stent is put in. So we had to wait, and then because it was a year lapsed, we had to do all the testing all over again.
So there is a waiting process, and there is a pre-qualification process, there's a waiting process, and certainly after the donation is complete, then there is another assessment that goes on during and after you receive the organ. Correct. So Djovannie had a question that having some experience in nephrology.
So it sounds like you made the decision to receive the transplant after the scheduling and having work. It is very hard on the body, I know that. And I've spoken to patients before that even when you're not receiving any treatment, you still feel not so well on the days you're not receiving treatment. So was that one of the major contributing factors to why you decided to go the transplant route?
The major factor really came from my wife. She wanted me to live as best the quality of life that I could. And with the